Hey, how's it going? It's May 17th, 2012, and this video is dedicated to all you folks out there watching, making this channel survive and thrive. While I don't necessarily have the most subscribers out of trans folks out there, I'm happy that I have a steady base of folks that are dedicated viewers and supporters, and I thank you for your warm comments and thoughts and love and references and links to your music videos that you've made. Actually enjoy those as well. I wanted to take a little bit to talk about some upcoming, or not upcoming, but rather just recently turn of new events with transgendered employment rights. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They are the folks in the United States that are in charge of basically enforcing and handling all the deliberation and claims of basically discrimination on the basis of age, sex, sexual orientation, all these things, able-bodiedness, and for a long time gender identity wasn't a part of it. And so when folks would bring up claims of, say, sexual harassment or discrimination, that they didn't get this job on the basis of their gender identity for being transgendered, there were so many gaps with interpretation of where do trans folks fit in this. As of last month, the EEOC, as a result of a case in San Francisco where a trans woman had, and I want to clarify, I should say a woman, she is transgendered, but folks have different ways of interpreting and identifying, and so I want to be fair to that. So this woman had transitioned and corrected myself, and so as a result of this situation, she was denied an opportunity, and her allegations included that she was denied an opportunity on the basis of her gender identity once her prospective employer found out that she had transitioned, and that the position was cut due to funding. And then she later found out that actually somebody else got the job, which was a big mistake and very stupid, and stupid in the first place for even not providing a fair chance, even though she was going to receive this position. So originally this case did not have enough backing, and as a result, the lawyers, the Legal Center, an amazing group in San Francisco, helped her take on this case, and the EEOC then stepped in and said, we need to expand our interpretation of equal opportunity rights here. And what does discrimination detail? And that folks who are transgendered are protected on the basis of being transgendered. And in terms of paperwork, as of right now, I can get into more detail a little bit later, but it's under the category of sex at the moment, at least to my best knowledge at the moment. But at the same time, this new, clear, very vivid interpretation stating that, this is something else that is now being legally backed and interpreted by the EEOC, that trans folks are now protected in the process of being hired, interview process, while at work, filing claims of discrimination. And I don't know if any of you filled out any of those forms in your lifetime with the EEOC, but they're not the most inclusive. You'd think that you'd have every single category there. You've got, race, age, left-handed, right-handed. Actually, that's not on there, but able-bodiedness is one. Skin color is even one there too, which is also there, and there's lots of other areas, but gender identity was never one of them. And so now this clear interpretation is going to provide a new foothold, that's the word, not stronghold, foothold for trans folks to consider what kind of protections they have through the process of trying to get work. And now, I'm going to take a sip of water for a second. It's tricky because in my own personal experiences, I've had prospective employers laugh at me for coming in, and you know that doesn't feel good. And I would say that during the beginning part of my coming out and the starting of my transitioning, it was very difficult to walk in high heels and skirts. It probably looked silly, but at the same time, it did not warrant an employer to laugh and say, "Is that a man?" Totally not cool. Totally not cool. But there was nowhere that I could take that. Another issue was when filing sexual harassment claims. Folks have basically ignored it because they're like, well, it's gender identity, and really it's just kind of weird, and you're asking for things that are probably due in the 22nd century, and like if you are expecting that degree of understanding from us, then like get real, because we're just learning how to be tolerant towards gay people. And that's kind of a serious attitude that I've encountered at workplaces, even the most progressive places that I've worked at. And they're just like, you just look at them and you just want to say, like, seriously. It's like, God, you just want to like, oh, like, that was not punching, but you just want to like reshape and go into their brains, and get them tolerant and understanding and compassionate. But that's not always the case. And in past situations, I've also, prior to coming out, when I was kind of feeling the waves, feeling the coming out waves, I had worn earrings, and for me that was a big step. That was like, wherever I could assert femininity and how I dressed, my own femininity, not textbook femininity, I would, and it made me feel stronger. It made me feel more confident in the sense that I was doing something for myself. And so why not bring that strength to work where I need it? And I've been told wearing earrings is against the dress code for men. And I'm like, how do you know what I am? Which brings me up to the next segment. Issues that trans folks face while looking for work or while at work. Or maybe it's just while at work, but may face at work or around work. Okay, so discrimination. Discrimination sucks. Everyone's been, well, not everyone. Some people definitely a lot more than others. It would be foolish to say that no one ever gets discriminated against. But getting discriminated against on the basis of race, sex, gender, identity, it's a little tiresome. It's a little annoying, and even at times age. And one of the things that I've seen across the board at different places of employment is that there's differences in policies. There's sometimes the policy manual will include sex and age and race, and then it stops as quickly as possible. And then sometimes it includes sexual orientation, but never had I ever seen gender identity and expression included in there. And that was always incredibly frustrating. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I just will hopefully never have to deal with that. And essentially, like, that's how I've always had to be, is just be very defensive and very weary and fearful, because I was vulnerable on this one very major aspect, which basically was like the fucking nucleus of what I was dealing with every single day. In any case, and I've experienced discrimination and harassment on the basis of being transgendered. It's absolutely annoying being asked all these different questions. And so hopefully this new interpretation will then put some heat, light a fire under employers' asses, and say, hey, look, let's look at our policies. What are our discrimination policies stating? Are they including gender identity? Because if we don't already do that, we're going to have to do that on a federal level. We're going to have to do that. And I think that at this point in time there is no excuse. And it's strange because in most places, corporations are the ones who have moved forward with protecting folks on the basis of being transgender, gender identity and expression. But small business owners are not following up, and that's really disappointing. Absolutely disappointing. So, hopefully this new interpretation will get that going and provide a process for people to do that. Another issue is education. So, very few places, and again, I mean, I would like to say that in an ideal world, we would do away with corporations and live on small farms and grow our own chickens and raise our own eggs. And the truth is, at the same time, and this is not to promote one thing versus another, but I'm constantly disappointed with the lack of training, workshops, and education. The amount that's available in most small, medium cities, there's something that exists. There's something that does exist. Bigger cities, definitely. But there are all these resources that exist. And yet, I'm not seeing it at locally owned places. And that is something, in general, locally owned corporate places that need to also start educating folks on pronoun usage, to what kind of questions are inappropriate for the workplace. You do not go up to Betty Sue and say, "Do you still have it down there?" It is completely inappropriate, and it is not cool at all ever to ever do that. And so, putting that aside, education and workshops often falls on the folks who are transgendered. I mean, just come on. Like, look, seriously. You know you've done that. You know that you've educated your coworkers on that. And then maybe some other coworkers will tell other coworkers, "Hey, don't do that." But is that really education, or is that just basically saying, "Don't say the forbidden word"? No, I mean, that's not education. That's just instilling fear. Education is when you can kind of navigate more freely, but know that, here's the structure to the house. Here's the roof. We do not drill holes in the roof. It keeps us dry, and it keeps us cool, and it keeps us warm. We need that roof there. And so providing that foundation for us. Education provides that foundation. So there it is. Stop questioning that. But seriously, trans folks, you know that you do that. You know that you have to go around there and tell people, "God, don't do that. Don't do that." And it's really tiresome. I was mentioning dress code, and hopefully in terms of policies, I've seen in many places, most liberal places, most conservative places, there's the same thing. Women may not wear skirts that go shorter than halfway up the thigh, which I think is, first of all, absolutely intrusive to say it's halfway up the thigh. First of all, you have to look at that person's thigh and analyze where the halfway point is. And at that point, you've looked at that person's thigh. Like, is that really a basis? But in any case, I'm just being silly there. But there's definitions that say, this is how women dress, this is how men dress. And when folks like myself may face a situation where our legal sex does not match what our sex is inside, our gender, then we're basically subjected to a dress code that does not match our insides. And that is the point of being out and transitioning and being ourselves, is the fact that we represent ourselves by how we dress. And so hopefully this will encourage even the places that have professional business attire to not say, "This is how women dress," but rather say that employers dress within, if they're going to wear this like this, if they're going to do that, but that there's professional business dress codes, and that it's left at that, without basically segregating it to what the legal sex is, because it fails to deliver. It misses the point of being transgendered. It is discriminatory. Another thing that's starting to make its way over is that, so with the different generations, and I have to say that generations can occupy, like, it could be like 5 years. One generation could almost be 5 years in the queer rights movement, or if you don't feel comfortable saying queer rights, the LGBT movement. Every 5 years is a remarkable difference. 5 years for you versus somebody who's 5 years younger, and what they face is so different. When I was growing up, there were no really outwardly gay characters on TV, maybe a few, but it was never really discussed. It wasn't for the sake of that person being strong in themselves. They were kind of a foil to whatever main characters were out there. And now, you know, boom, there's Ellen, and she came out on her show, and all these different shows. Glee. I mean, Glee's kind of crappy now, but you get the point. Like, and sorry I said that. I really liked the first season and a half, but after that, it goes downward. It's just my opinion. I'm just saying. I love Glee. Don't worry. Seriously. But those things, those small cultural things, are really big, and they really make a difference in kind of educating and training people for what they feel is normal. And whatever that the perception is as normal really, unfortunately, determines how open-minded someone is at the starting level, and then there's education, and then they become more open-minded. And so, one of the things that's super important to take into consideration is that, hopefully, that with each and every single iteration where someone faces discrimination, that they prepare themselves for knowing how to deal with discrimination on the basis of being transgendered. To first understand how the interpretation works, how it protects you, understanding your own policies at work, but also keep records of everything. Always keep records of everything. Everything, your evaluations, your reviews, keep copies of those. Emails, things that show the quality of your work, the positive commendations, keep records of those. Because those are things that are, if there is going to be a case made against you, people are going to try to discredit you on the basis of your work behavior. If you're being fired for speaking up, they will try to show that you have acted in misconduct. And so keeping record of your records is so important. If something happens, send an email to yourself, and then I'll have a timestamp, and you can just be like, this is what happened today, and this made me feel uncomfortable. And so you've got your long list of things. And even if your employer and you are hunky-dory and everything is perfect and beautiful and roses, always, always keep records. It doesn't matter, because if things do not work out, you'll at least know that you've got this new interpretation that has your back, and you've got the ability to use this tool, because, like with all tools, a hammer is very... It's thunder! Oh my god! Like with all tools, a hammer is very useful, but it is useless if it's just sitting there. So it's important to utilize these tools, also having the foundation and the basis for using it effectively. But all in all, I hope that folks really start to get educated, not just trans folks, but other employers, and understand that being transgendered is essentially the same as pretty much as anything else. And it's so hard to find work in small towns, and that's the issue that I face right now. And all I can say is that I feel a lot more confident going to places now. I feel a lot more confident knowing that I've got this interpretation that's got my back, and so I'm really happy about that. And so you yourself, and I'm speaking to all you folks, all you trans folks, I'm talking to all of you, I'm serious. You don't have to be the movement yourself. You don't have to be a freedom fighter for trans folks. You don't necessarily have to be a whistleblower. You don't have to do anything crazy. But when you educate yourself and prepare yourself for all these situations, and also to stop right there, I want to say that one thing I encourage folks to do is to find ways to educate their employer, their human resources department, their managers, with this new interpretation of the EEOC. It's absolutely fresh off the news ticker, and it's so important that people know. And even if you don't feel comfortable knowing, even if you don't feel comfortable knowing that you're protected, even if you don't feel comfortable letting your employer know, you can always try to find a way where you can kind of segue and use local groups and organizations to educate your workplace of these upcoming changes, as well as workshops as well to educate other coworkers. And the reason why I mention that is, basically you want to address this new interpretation and let it soak in people's minds before something bad happens, instead of after the fact. Because if it happens after the fact, it just makes it look like you're trying to pick apart a situation and find things that are leading towards proving your case, instead of just simply being, oh, this was blatantly transgender discrimination against trans people, and that's that. So it allows people to kind of socially acculturate themselves to this new interpretation. But I do want to say that, going back to my final point, that you don't necessarily have to be a freedom fighter or a big activist or an organizer, but when you educate your employer, your human resources department, your manager, and when you educate yourself of the rights you have and keep records, ideally nothing bad ever happens. And that's the ideal situation. People treat you nicely and that never ever happens. But in the situation that it does, you have the ability to defend yourself and take a strong stance and let people know. I mean, it's through the usage of this interpretation that it becomes more legitimate and solidified, and that through constant usage that the EEOC starts to record these numbers. And that is the magic thing that needs to happen, is that the EEOC needs to start tabulating and recording, here's discrimination against trans folks on the basis of, basically the numbers that are currently in circulation don't capture the entire picture. They're not large enough, they're not big enough. And so we need to start developing these patterns where we're showing our government and basically the agencies that are here to protect us, ideally, that this is what's happening and here's the frequency of discrimination. And even that simple act, it may not necessarily yield an outcome that you'd like, but at least you know that you'd fought the best that you could. And like with all things, I think it's really important to be appreciative of the things that we enjoy now, that are things that have been a result of sacrifices and hard work and tears and abuses and beatings of other folks who have gone before us, that make it a little bit or a lot more comfortable. And so I feel like for our own selves and for all those who come after us, that it's important to not just do this because it's right, but because we care. We care about ourselves and we care about each other. Thank you.